Rebel Author Podcast, where we talk about books, business, and occasionally bad words. Hello, Rebels, and welcome to episode 140 of the Rebel Author Podcast. Today, I'm talking to none other than Elana Johnson, all about writing and marketing systems. But first, to last week's question, which was, tell me something you're proud of. So Jackson Hollingsworth said, it may not seem like a lot, but I'm proud of finishing my first chapter. I've been researching and outlining a lot, and it's nice to finally get into the substance of the story. Already getting great and useful feedback from my critique partners. So yeah, well done. That is a huge, mammoth achievement. I kind of feel like every single chapter and every single scene that you complete is a big achievement because they're all mini milestones in what will eventually be a gigantic goal complete as you finish that book. So well done, you. Shane Miller says, loved how much you loved this episode, Sasha. I'm proud that I've published 4 books since January, and holy shit, that is a monster achievement. Huge congratulations for smashing those out. So this week's question is, what do you want to learn more about? And I suppose for me specifically, I am going to continue my journey down the strengths wormhole and everybody drink. And I think, I don't know, like I feel like just across the board, I'm always going to be a student. I love learning, so I will always want to learn more about craft, learn more about marketing. So yes, I think romance specifically is probably where I'm going to focus my learning for the rest of this year. And maybe mindset too, but I'll update that in a second. The book recommendation of the week this week is I Kissed Shara Wheeler by Casey McQuiston. I have less than 100 pages to go, I think. Something like that. So I've read most of the book and it is so good. It is a like a MacGuffin mystery, got to find the girl kind of a story, and found friends. And it's just, Casey McQuiston wrote One Last Stop, and that was amazing as well. She has this really unique way with detail. Like her books are so detailed, but still bingeable and still quick reads. It's really interesting. I don't know quite how she's done it, so I definitely want to like deconstruct it and figure out how she's done it. But yeah, I'm really, really enjoying this story, so I highly recommend that. So in my personal update, it's been a weird kind of a week because I finished The Anatomy of a Bestseller last week, and that went off to my critique partners. So I haven't had a project specifically that I'm working on. So my days have felt a bit weird. I have been working on Rebel Reader Masterclass presentations. I've been doing admin, catching up. I've managed to keep my inbox below 10 for over like 4 days, which is just unbelievable. What else have I been working on? I have started planning the new series, and I started reading the words that I've already written in The Scent of Death last night as well. Not last night. Yeah, anyway, the last couple of days I've been doing that. So it's kind of felt like a strange week because I feel like I haven't really made any progress on anything. But that said, I'm feeling very mixed. I have been struggling. I think I told you last week that I was struggling with kind of mindset and feeling doubt and imposter syndrome. And it hasn't really gone away, which is unusual. Usually I'm sort of able to kick its ass and tell it to fuck off, and then I just get on with things. And I have been getting on with things, but I think because I haven't been working dedicated on a project, because obviously I'm going to New York on Saturday, it doesn't make any sense to start a project now only to have to leave it for a week. Yeah, I don't know. I feel strongly that I need to sort my shit out because my brain right now is telling me that the idea for The Scent of Death is shit, that the words don't work that I've written, that I need to throw it all away. And then, I've sort of planned 4 or 5 books in this new series very loosely. Like I have not done loads of detailed planning or anything. And my brain's like, the tropes are shit, the story's shit, this isn't unique enough. Like, it's so boring. I'm so bored of myself and my brain. But this just seems to be what I'm like at this point in the journey. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because I haven't started and so therefore I'm not really into it and it hasn't sort of hooked me, and maybe the momentum will carry me through once I get started. But yeah, suffering with more doubt than I feel like I've suffered with in a really long time. So I'm not quite sure what has brought that on, but I need to do a bit of work on that. So as for the next week, I mean, today is Thursday, the 26th of May, and I am getting on a plane on Saturday, the 28th of May. So next week I will be doing nothing work-wise. I will be filling my brain with inspiration from all the things that we see in New York and Washington. And so, yeah, it will be a week away. The next episode, actually this episode will air whilst I am in America. And then the following week's episode, I'm going to record today as well. So there won't be as many kind of intro notes for next week. But that's because I will be away when I would have normally recorded it. So yeah, a couple of weeks where I'll kind of be in limbo. And then hopefully I will be back and I will be smashing out the edits on The Anatomy of a Bestseller and then cracking on with the fiction. And I hope that I come back. I really can't tell you how much I need this rest. Like, I feel a bit broken at the moment. I don't know, like, it's not like I feel tired right this second, but I feel weary, like my soul feels a bit weary. So yeah, I'm really very much looking forward to this break. And yeah, I don't think I'm going to update on anything else because I'm just going to talk round and round in circles. All right, the Rebel of the Week this week is Allison Carroll. For as long as I can remember, my mum said that my sisters and I should only trim our hair about every other month to keep it healthy, and continuously denied our requests whenever we asked if we could do anything new to it. I, for one, got sick of hearing this, and as it's been said before, hair does grow back, so why not have some fun with it? By the time I was 17, I knew it was time to do something about my hair predicament. Much to my mother's dislike on this topic, I did have my own money to do with as I wished. My first task was to find a new stylist, and wow, did I ever. She put fuel to the fire and suggested I go with red or copper lowlights to go with my blonde hair. The end result was even better than I could have imagined. Not only did my friends, dance teachers and sisters love it, but I actually got my mum and dad to say that it looked nice and fit the fall season as well. Ah, hell yes. To take that a step further, 2 years later, I cut off my waist-length hair to what was essentially a bob cut. That time, my mum even went with me to see it done. Holy crap! That is amazing. I can't believe the turnaround that you got your mum. You even got your mum to go with you. That is one hell of a rebellion. I also did something very similar. I have very, very curly hair, sort of telephone wire ringlet type hair, and my mum loved my hair when I was a child and didn't want me to have it cut off whilst I was living in her house. So like, I hadn't been to a hairdresser's before I was 18. And then when I went to university, I went up to visit an old school friend at Leeds University and had a couple of pints and was like, fuck it, let's go and get my hair cut off. So literally I went from like waist length hair to like a pixie cut that was very close to my head. And my mum, I think I remember my mum being a bit tearful. She didn't take it as well. Oh, I do love the hair rebellions. If you'd like to be a Rebel of the Week, please do send in your story. It can be any kind of rebellion, something big, something small, something from history, something current. It can be an animal rebellion for everybody to enjoy. It could be a sibling or a spouse or a mum or a dad or a whatever. You can email your Rebel story to Becca on rebelauthorpodcast@gmail.com. A huge thank you to all my existing patrons this week. No new patrons, but as always, a gigantic hug and massive love and appreciation from me to all of my existing patrons. If you would like to support the show and get early access to all of the episodes as well as a ton of bonus content, then you can from as little as $2 a month by visiting patreon.com/Sasha Black. This week's episode is sponsored by the ever amazing Pro Writing Aid. So rather than me tell you why I love Pro Writing Aid, I'm going to let one of my amazing patrons tell you all about it. So Lynn is published in the Rebel Author Diaries. So if you would like to see a little bit of her writing, then you can by purchasing a copy of the Rebel Diaries. All right, Lynn, over to you.
Pro Writing Aid isn't just for your manuscript. Don't get me wrong, it's great for that, but it's also for your website content, your newsletter, and your social media posts. You can copy and paste any text into the web editor or use one of its many software integrations so you can edit anything and everything you ever type. Because let's face it, you can't really copy edit your own work. You miss something. And I, for one, am fed up of crafting my messaging, hitting tweet, and immediately spotting the typo. There's nothing left to do then but curse the Twitter gods for not giving us an edit button. Pro Writing Aid is an editing tool for formal reports to Instagram posts. Not only does it help with catching those annoying typos, but it flags when I've slipped into using passive voice, and it suggests fixes and explains the problem so that I can learn for the future and write better content.
Okay, that's enough from me today. Because there won't be as much of an intro next week, from me to you, I hope you have a smashing couple of weeks and you crack out loads of words. I'd love to hear about what you all get done in the next couple of weeks. So for now, until I'm back, have an amazing writing week. Hello and welcome to the Rebel Author Podcast. I am basically pee my pants excited today because I have the one and only Elana Johnson. Elana is a USA Today best-selling and Amazon Kindle all-star author. She writes clean and wholesome contemporary romance. She is well known for her young adult dystopian romance series, published by Simon Pulse. She writes clean beach romance. And Elana also writes inspirational Western romances under the USA Today best-selling pen name of Liz Isaacson. Elana is the force behind indie inspiration, of which I'm part of the Facebook group, which I will link to in the show notes. And you can find her amazing books for writers, Writing and Releasing Rapidly, Writing Killer Cover Copy, among others, on all of the stores. So I will put all of those links in the show notes. And hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me on the podcast. It's exciting.
Before we kind of dive into the questions and some of the content from the questions I have from your books, I wondered if you could first tell everyone a little bit about your journey. How did you end up where you are today?
Yeah, when I saw that question, I was like, wow, this could be like the whole podcast, right? I've been writing for about 15 or 16 years now, so quite a while. I started in Trad Pub. I got an agent in 2009. And my first book came out from Simon & Schuster in 2011. That was my young adult dystopian stuff. I've kind of deviated away from there since then. I've probably walked about 50 different paths in publishing, maybe 100, including this indie route and switching genres and doing pen names and trying different marketing things. And that's what I love to do the most. And I found the most success on this indie route. And so that's what I do full time now. I've retired from my job. And that's what I do is run my publishing business and write the books full time. And so it's been quite the journey of kind of going through, kind of starting writing when Kindles were brand new. I think the Kindle came out in 2007. So I started writing in 2008, just after that. And, self-publishing and indie publishing was not really a thing until a little bit later. And just, it fits my personality. It fits my writing schedule. It just fits my life and I love doing it. So kind of been all over the place with hybrid publishers, won contests, Trad Pub, and now I'm mostly indie. Haven't done anything with a traditional publisher in quite a while. So that's what I'm loving and doing right now.
And one of the most amazing things you do is the generous amount of content and information that you give back to the indie community as well. Like, let's not forget that. And that is, of course, how I found you. And I read and loved the writing and marketing systems book. And that's kind of where I want to base the conversation, and a little bit about your recent Vegas talk as well. So you have extensive systems in place. They are awe-inspiring. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about how you even approached it. Like, how do you talk in the book a bit about how to actually assess? And I think that first starting point is quite overwhelming if you don't really know how to do it. So could you talk about that? Like, how do you go through that initial setup and assessment phase?
Yeah, sure. So, I used to teach elementary school. So I love teaching, and I love, kind of saying what works for me, which is why I love sort of giving back. But, and that's kind of why I wrote the indie books, is I'm like, this is how I do what I do. Because I get a lot of people asking me, well, how do you do this? How do you write so fast? How do you get so much done? Blah, 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 blah. And as I was thinking about it and really like trying to figure out like what I do, I'm like, well, I have systems. And, when I first started writing, obviously you don't have a system. Most of us don't have a system. We're writing and we think it's fun, and we have a couple of hours after our day job or something like that, or a couple of hours where our kids are asleep, or, something. And we're just doing it. And then all these other tasks sort of come onto us outside of the writing. And so as that happened to me, I had a very limited amount of time in my day. I was working a day job. I had young children. I had deadlines with publishers. I was writing a lot anyway, but I think the systems are super vital. And I think most of us probably function better inside some sort of parameters for our day, our schedule, our hours that we have available. When we go to a day job, most of us have tasks that have to be done by a certain time. We have somebody we have to report to. We have all kinds of things that we have to do in a certain amount of time, or by a deadline or something like that. So I didn't have very much time. My writing time was very small and very precious. And I learned over time that I work in a certain way that is best and quickest for me. So as you're thinking about setting up a system, and I have lots of different systems. So like I have a system for my newsletters, and I have a system for my drafting, and I have a system for my outlining, and I have a system for my editing. So when I say writing and marketing systems, and that was a book that, I kind of came onto the radar with that book. I had other books out before that, and I was doing well before that. But when that book came out, I think people were like, who is this girl? Because I hope it's really a practical way for you to go, how can I do what I'm doing in less time, right? So that I have more time with my family, more time to be a person, and I'm not working 16 hours a day. Because I think a lot of writers...
That's a thing that we can do that if we can not work 16 hours.
Yeah, right? Because I think a lot of people who work for themselves like we do, we can work 24 hours a day and still never be done with anything. And you can get to overwhelm really, really quickly. So if you're like, I need a system, the very first thing that I tell people that they have to do is you have to track what you do. So, and I think this kind of bleeds into your next question. So I don't know if I'll answer them both, but you should go into setting up a system with zero expectations for what you can do. So you might think to yourself, that's hard. That's really hard.
But I have such high expectations all of the time.
Right. And a lot of us can go, well, I can write, let's say 2,000 words a day. I know I can do that. And I'm like, but do you know you can do that? And if you do, how long does that take you? So does that take you an hour? Does that take you 5 hours? What's the best time of day for you to do that? Do you know when you can do that the quickest? I ask people that. I always ask them, do you do it 7 days a week, or can you do 3 or 4? So I think that really you have to go back to zero, and you have to go, I have no expectations for what I'm going to do, but I'm going to keep track of it. So I tell people 30 to 60 days. I think 60 is better because you can find more patterns in your own life and in your own productivity when you track for, 7 weeks, 7, 8, however many weeks that is, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something, 30 days, 1 month is only 4 weeks. So it's better if you have more weeks to look at. So that's what I did. I downloaded, and I just have a simple spreadsheet, and I know people freak out about spreadsheets. You don't need to freak out about it. It's all set up for you already. I downloaded it for free, and I put a link in my indie group, and I can send you a link, Sasha, so you can put that on in the notes as well. And you can donate to this person, but they make these links, these sheets every year. My sheet this year is Bridgerton. So I go into it every day, and all I'm tracking right now is words. And so I just track words. But when I began, I tracked time as well. So I would say I wrote 5,000 words. It took me 3 hours. And I would kind of keep track of, I wrote these 5,000 words in these 3 hours between 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. because it's not necessarily going to be 3 hours condensed. I might get up and go to the bathroom or take a break or have to let the dogs out or whatever. But between 7 and 11, I think I wrote for about 3 hours, and I got these 5,000 words. So I learned, as I kept track of those things, I learned when I was writing. I learned how much I could do in what amount of time. And I discovered patterns in my own productivity. So if we're talking about writing, like producing content, then you track it. And I mean, I still track these things now, but I track also in the little note. So there's lots of columns in the sheet, but I just put in the words and the time. And then over on the right-hand side, there's a big long column for you to write notes. And I will write in there. I still do like yesterday I did it. I was like, I think my note yesterday was admin for days, didn't write until 8 p.m. So it just
feels like such a big part of my life.
Right. And I think a lot of us feel like that. We have all these administrative tasks on top of the writing. And so, and some days I don't do admin hardly at all. And so that's not a note, but other days I'm like, I've been doing admin for 5 hours. And then I still need to write. And so then I wrote for 3 hours, and that's my 8-hour day. And I really have gotten my days down to about 8 hours, and I don't really work more than that anymore. And it's been really nice. And some days I don't work that much at all. I work 3 or 4 hours a day. And some days I only work 1 hour a day. So it just depends on what your system is that you have set up for yourself. But I think you should track it.
Yeah.
So I was tracking everything. I'd be like, I have a church activity that, went from 7 to 9. I'm super tired today because I didn't sleep very well last night. My dog threw up all night, so I'm exhausted. I mean, I tracked it all. And I think you should do that. That's what I tell people to do for 30, 60 days. And I do it at the end of every evening. I'm like, okay, what was my word count today? What did I do today? And I kind of just type it out. It's really quickly. It's like it's just a few words. And from that, I see patterns in my life. I see what days I'm tired. I see what times of day I'm more distracted. So I like to work during the day, because as soon as my husband comes downstairs at night, and he puts something on the TV, I can write a chapter, but it will take me 5 hours.
Yep.
Whereas if I'm working during the day, I can write a chapter in, 35 minutes. So it just depends on, I can be working while the movie is on, but is writing really the best task? Or is a better thing to do while the movie is on, create, admin tasks and paying people and responding to emails? Like, when is the best time to do the tasks that need to be done? And then that kind of goes under my column of when I have good intentions, but the others, and I capitalized others in my notes. That could be children, husband, dogs, extended family, sicknesses, whatever. In your life, blow it all up. So I've learned over time that I want to work on Saturday, but Saturday is a day that could get blown up at any moment, and I have to be prepared for that. So I typically don't schedule myself to do, 10,000 words on a Saturday. It's just not in my lifestyle to do that. So, and then my lifestyle is not going to look like yours, and it's not going to look like anybody else's. So that's why you have to track for yourself, and you have to know what you can do and look for those patterns and then play to those strengths. So I noticed, just really quickly, because I talk a lot, but I noticed in my own patterns when I was doing this, that Thursday was a very, very difficult day for me to write. I was teaching school. I'm tired by Thursday, and I'm writing a lot Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because I take every Sunday off. So Sunday is a complete off day for me. I usually work for about an hour on Sunday, and that's it. So, and it's all admin set up for the week, social media, newsletters. That's all I do on Sundays. But by Thursday, I'm exhausted. And I noticed in my spreadsheet that I had a 0 every Thursday. And the notes on Thursday were, I'm so tired. I'm so glad tomorrow's Friday. I'm just exhausted. I stared at my Kindle for hours playing games. I scrolled on Facebook for 2 hours. Like, I just am dead on Thursdays. So guess what? I'm not going to put any writing on Thursdays, because all that's going to do is set me up for failure. And when we feel like a failure, then that affects what we're doing. And then we're like, I kind of equate it to dieting. Like, I ate a piece of chocolate. That's over for today, So
yeah, I love that. It's funny because I have always tracked word count for years. I have tracked word count, but I haven't ever been like, what's the word? I have like a lot of missing words at the moment, but I haven't tracked more detail than just word count. And that, like, as you were talking, I was like, there are definitely times where I am more distracted, where I definitely keep like I have to shut the email. Otherwise I will just scroll the email instead of writing the words. So I definitely, I feel inspired to go away and like put a bit more detail on my tracking system. But it's funny, I started a new tracking system this year, and that tracks days of the week. So I now know the amount of words per day of the week. I don't get any words on a Thursday.
Isn't that interesting?
Isn't it? No words,
no words.
And I think it's partly because quite often I will slot a meeting in on a Thursday, but I think I'm doing that subconsciously because I know I'm bollocksed. So it's like, but right. So just lean into it, I suppose.
Yes, that's what I think you should do. You shouldn't go, oh, well, Thursday is a huge waste of my day. Like, oh, I'm such a bad person because I don't do anything on Thursday. I'm a terrible author, No, you go, I can't write on Thursdays. So that's my mental break from my story. And I'm going to do other things on Thursdays. I'm going to lean into it, like you said. And I've realized that about myself on Monday too, because I take most of the weekend off. I will write on Saturday and do a few things, but it's usually 4 or 5 hours. And then Sunday is nothing. So when I come back on Monday, I have a lot of tasks that need to be done. I have a lot of admin. So I always schedule Monday as a lighter writing day for myself.
Interesting.
Right? I lean into it. And then, because you know what? At the end of the day, I want to feel like a success, because success breeds more success. When I feel like I killed today, I got my 5,000 words, I did all my admin tasks, I can go to sleep. Then I'm not laying in bed wondering why I can't go to sleep because I have all these things on my lists that I didn't finish. I finished them all, And then on Tuesday, I go, okay, I'm going to write 10,000 words on Tuesdays, and I'm going to write 10,000 words on Wednesday. And then I'm going to go back down to, I'm going to try for 2 chapters on Thursday. And always on Thursday, I say, try for 2 chapters. I don't say write 2 chapters. Like, I try for it. If I can get it, great. If I can't, then I'm like, well, I tried, check.
I love that. And that kind of like, and I'm jumping a question, but that kind of leads really well into one of the things that I loved in your book, which was about the permission that you give. Like, you empower writers the whole way through the book to be like, if it doesn't work for you, oh, well, don't do it. Or like, if this works for you, do that. And like, that's one of the things that I think there are lots of really loud voices in the community, and we get so caught up in thinking we have to do this or we have to do that. And sort of bringing it back to the systems, I think one of the things that we really struggle to do, and when I started outsourcing, I struggled with this, was just knowing, like, what even is it that we can hire out? So, like, can you talk about the process of how you started outsourcing? Like, when did you know the time was right? How did you know what to get rid of?
Yeah, sure. So I knew I needed an assistant. I was working, still teaching school, and then, working a full-time author job as well. I was working like 17, 18 hours a day. And I was just like, I can't keep doing this. I need help with some tasks that, I just don't need to be touching. So that was about 3 years ago, coming up in three years in May, I think. And then last October, I hired people on full-time. So now I have 3 people in the business full-time besides myself. So I have 2 assistants, a full-time administrative assistant. My husband works for me full-time. And then I have another assistant who's about 3/4 time. And then we have people that they manage underneath them as well. So, and that was a process to get to that, but it has been interesting seeing what else I can get rid of off my plate. And so this is how I was thinking about it when I saw this question. I'm like, well, okay. When I first started hiring out tasks, the first thing I got rid of was setting up my newsletter. So think about what it takes to set up your newsletter. Like, you have to get links, you have to pull covers, you have to get blurbs. It's a lot of copying and pasting. Right. And out there opening things and opening the cover in a new tab and dragging it to your desktop and all that stuff. I don't have to do that. Like, that is not something that you as the creator of books needs to be doing, in my opinion. So that was my first, like, I can get rid of this. So I think of it now as I'm the CEO of this company, and it's not a huge company. It's a small business, but I'm the one with the ideas, and I am the only one who can write the books. I am the only person who can create the products. And the products are what make the most money. So I'm the one who makes the money for the business. I cannot make that money if I'm not doing the most important tasks. And for me and my business, that's writing the books. So it depends on how you have your business maybe set up. And of course, what you can afford to do. And when I say that, I mean monetarily, of course, but I also mean mentally and emotionally. Some people have a hard time giving up tasks. So because they want to have control over that, they want to touch all of it. So you have to kind of know yourself and know what is going to work for you inside your own mental and emotional sphere of what's okay inside your business.
Do you think that's a growth point though? Because yes. I would definitely class myself as a control freak until I actually started letting go. And then yes. when I started letting go, I was like, whoa, I have all the time back, like, to do the important shit. And then I was like, I'm gonna carve that off. I'm gonna get rid of that. Get rid of that. Like, but it was such a shift. Like, it really does feel.
It's a huge shift, and it will help you grow. But I also think that it also will teach you that there will be mistakes made. The people that you rely on to do these other things are going to make mistakes. So they just are. But then you learn, well, my business didn't tank because they made a mistake. Oh, well, and then to me, it's a training. I just train my people. I train my people to do what I want them to do. And when they don't do what I want them to do, then we work together to fix it. And then they don't make that mistake again. Right. So it's a huge mindset shift in that regard too, that there's going to be some mistakes made, but that's okay. It's not going to affect your business that much, and you don't need to be touching it. So you just don't need to be touching it. So what I do is I equate it to $100 an hour job. So I make $100 an hour. This is an arbitrary amount of money. Okay. So you're the CEO, you make $100 an hour. So I look at every task inside my business and I evaluate it. And I think, is this worth my time? If I spend an hour on this, is this worth $100, or is this worth somebody else's time? That's super honest and arrogant, but I do the $100 an hour tasks and my assistants do the $30 an hour tasks, right? I don't do the $30 an hour tasks, and I don't do the $15 an hour tasks. I just don't. I'm in the corner office. I do the $100 hour tasks. So it's not a good use of my time personally to be pulling links and pulling covers and setting up newsletter swaps and getting the newsletter ready to set out. So I have other people do that for me. My $100 is valuable in personalizing the newsletter. So my assistant gets it all ready. She does not schedule it. I have to schedule it. So that's a Sunday system. I do that every Sunday. I go into the newsletters that are going out that week, and I decide what newsletters and what content is going out. But I have a sheet and it says, we're going to share Otis chapter 4. I mean, that's all it says. She pulls all the links. She gets the chapter, like she gets the cover. She does everything. She will type in all the personalized stuff. And then I either go edit it or change it. She's been working with me for quite a long time now that literally she can write my newsletter because she's seen enough of what I've changed. She's read enough of my newsletters that she can be me if she needs to be. So my $100 is spent personalizing that newsletter, putting a personal story behind it, saying why I wrote that book, or I'm super excited about this chapter because, and then I respond to readers who reply to those newsletters. That's my job. That's the $100 an hour coming in, is me making sure that I'm connecting to the reader and being the forward face of the brand. Right. So the assistants are not the forward face of the brand. They do all of the work behind the forward face, who is me. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does completely.
But copying and pasting links, that's not $100 an hour task. Pulling a cover, setting up a swap, organizing the newsletters, organizing social media. I don't do any of that. So I started there. I started with getting rid of those things that take time and pull you away from creativity and, are just kind of a drain on you emotionally to have to do all these tasks. And then I expand it out. So I do think authors should be on social media if they can stand it at all. So, the most important places for you and your readers, not all places, but I always ask myself, is this $100 an hour task? Making graphics? Not $100 an hour task for me, because there's tools, there's Canva templates, there's BookBrush templates. Anyone can do that. Can anyone write your books? Can anyone evaluate your ads? So almost all of my time is spent writing, outlining, editing, and evaluating advertising efforts. That's what I do. So that's what I'm doing in the corner office, 8 hours a day. And then I have to manage my people. So that there's a lot of admin on that side too. I have to be like, I have to pay this audiobook person or whatever. I manage all of the inner workings of the money. But I don't make graphics. I don't schedule social media posts. Like, I say that so disdainfully, but I'm like, I'm not going to spend an hour scheduling things to go up in my Facebook group. That's not $100 an hour task. So my assistants do that. And I did spend quite a while writing those social media tasks for them and training them what I want and how many times per week we do certain things. But that all came in like a standard operating procedure. I've got training videos for lots of things and, timelines for when we do things, what time we post, how we act, how we respond to people who are upset about this, that, the other. And then they text me if they have a question, if they can't handle it themselves. So I have SOPs for everything that we do inside the business. It's just a system that I've developed over time to be able to give to my people and be like, this is what I need you to do. And then they learn that. It's heavily assisted in the beginning by me, and then they take it over completely. So
I love all of this so much. It is so encouraging because definitely some of the things that you're saying I've like done or am putting in place. So like, this is wildly encouraging.
Yeah,
it works. The system works. I have a question that has come from a patron who also has high consistency. And this is from Scott. And Scott wanted to ask you about, once you have put like a test system in place or a trial, you are working with something new. How do you know whether or not it's working? How do you test it? How do you figure out like what bit to tweak, what bit to trial or test and change?
Yeah, so that is kind of a hard question because it's going to be so personal. But So I've got a system in place. I'm like, okay, I make my schedule every Saturday for the next week based on meetings I have, podcasts I'm doing, anything like that. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to write these many words. So you'll know if it's not working, because you're not achieving the things that you set out to achieve with that system. So you'll know if let's say it's a writing system and you're just not writing as much as you thought you could, then you have to adjust that. And I would go back to tracking it and go, okay, maybe this was just a bad week. And if it's a bad week, you can throw that out in your tracking, but give yourself, 6 to 8 weeks to track it again and see if it's working. Everybody, the common advice is sit down and write in the morning, first thing in the morning. I can't do that. So I spent many years feeling bad about myself that I didn't have, my writing done before noon, but it's just not how I work. So you have to I think it's so internal that I just go, is this working for me? Am I getting things done in the manner that I need to get them done in? Or is it taking me longer? Do I not feel good about the process? Am I fighting with myself while doing it? I think most authors know what it's like to fight with a book. I just wrote a book that I literally fought with the main character the entire 90,000 words. I was like, can you just please do what I have outlined for you to do? And he didn't want to do it. And so I think most of us have had those, arguments with our creative muse. Like he wants to do something else and I want him to do what I've outlined. Please, I'm begging you. So what I do in that moment when I know it's not working is I abandon the system. Like, I know that sounds terrible, but I just abandon it. I'm not going to try to work inside a system that is failing me, because again, that's going to make me feel like a failure. And I think we don't want to feel like that as human beings, and especially as writers, where I think a lot of us experience some strong emotions. We don't want to feel like that, because then we don't want to get up the next day and do our job. It's too hard to feel like a failure day in and day out. So I abandon the system and I go, okay, I'm going to try something different. I've been writing at night. I'm not getting anything done. I'm distracted all night long because, that's when my husband is home or whatever. So I need to do something different. I'm going to completely flip-flop. I'm going to try to, set an alarm and get up and work in the morning. So I go, okay. And if I can do that better, then I'm like, okay, the time of day was the thing that I needed to change. And so now I found this really great time of day that works for me. And I'm going to stick with that for as long as it's working. And the reason I say for as long as it's working is because your system will morph and change over time. Mine changes about every 3 to 4 months. Just when I think, oh my gosh, this is my system. This is how I'm killing it. I'm getting 14,000 words a day. All hail.
And then 14,000 words a day.
And then, I've done podcasts before where I'm like, oh, I write 2 books a day. Well, I did that for 6 or 8 months. And then I was like, I can't write 2 books a day anymore. That's too hard. I can't do that much, so now I write 1 book a day. So that's another thing is, as you're working through your systems, you will feel them start to change, and that's okay. You have to be super flexible with your systems. Otherwise, it will fail, and then you'll be like, oh, I don't know what this chick's talking about with her systems. These don't work, So you have to be flexible with the system, and they will morph and change over time as you continue to figure out what works best for you and when. Based on your own life as it changes and morphs, because every day is different.
It's so interesting because I usually will only work on 1 book. And then today, it wasn't a book that I moved to, but I'm doing a solo podcast episode, but I need the transcript in order to know what it is that I'm going to say. And I literally doubled my word count. And I was like, oh, maybe I should work on 2 different things in a day just so I get more words. Because it wasn't like I was tapped out on capacity to write words. I was just tapped out of that project for the day. So but what I'm hearing is that in order, momentum is everything. Momentum is king. So change, iterate, or tweak in order to just keep going. That's kind of what I'm hearing. And that, I haven't really heard it put like that. So I really that's amazing. speaking of 14,000 holy shit words a day, just let's talk about the elephant in the room. Like, but not, I don't just want to ask like how you write quickly. I want to know about the system, because clearly there must be some elements of your system that really work for you. And I would just love to know about like what maybe the best tweaks you've made, or like what elements of your system really set you up to win when it comes to word count.
All right. So word count for me is when, I have high competition and I'm an achiever. So both of those things really, it's a curse. They push me to do better and better. Right. So it's good, but I've trained myself to write fast. And it's the same way. I always like to liken it to exercise. So I've lost about 70 pounds this year because I have a bulging disc in my back. And my doctor was like, you need to lose some weight. It will ease some pressure on your back or whatever.
Congratulations, by the way. That's a huge achievement.
Thanks. And it's not been easy because I'm in pain quite a lot, but I've changed a lot of things in this last year. And he said, and P.S., you can't stand or sit for longer than 20 minutes. So every 20 minutes, you need to be changing. Well, that actually works really, really well for me, because I started writing in late 2007, really got into it in 2008. And I was teaching school and I had little children, and I would get them ready for school. And we'd have about 10 or 15 minutes before we needed to leave for the bus stop. And then I could drive to work after that. And I learned to write in those 10 or 15 minutes. So I would set an alarm on my phone and I would open my computer, and they're watching TV. They're ready to go. We're all ready. I have my computer out. I'm writing. When the alarm goes off, they have to go to the bus. Like, they can't miss the bus. I have to go to work. It's elementary school. The bell rings. The kids are there. So I learned to write in very short, segmented periods of time with a lot of things going on around me. And when people hear that, I think they're horrified, because they're like, if I don't have,
it's amazing.
But I want to challenge people, try it. Like, and I don't think people will try it. I've taught a class about this productivity before, and I was like, put a movie on and see if you can write. And they're like, I can't do that. I'm like, but can you? Are you sure you can't? Because maybe you can. And I want to challenge people to try to write in a way that they think they can't, because and do it consistently. Try to do it for, 2 or 3 weeks, because you will adapt to that. You will adapt to it. Even if you have an hour, set it for 15 minutes. And when the 15 minutes goes off, no matter where you are, you stop. I didn't finish sentences. When the alarm went off, it was time to close the computer and be done. So I would literally silence the alarm and close the computer mid-sentence. I still end writing sessions probably half the time mid-sentence, because then I'm ready to start the next day. I open it and I'm like, oh yeah, I was writing this, and I keep going. So I think some people are afraid they're going to lose their mojo. They're going to lose these amazing words that they were going to write. And I'm like, I'm not worried about that. I'm going to get those words when it's time to get them. So there is no wait a second, I need to finish this. So that would be something that I would challenge people to do. Some people are like, if I'm not in my office with, pearl gray walls and the temperature is 71.2, and then I can't write. I'm like, I can write anywhere, anytime. I don't even care what's going on around me. Like, I can do anything. So for me, that's how I learned to write. So for me, it's very innate to just be able to sit and do that. But I think you can train yourself to do it. So that's one thing that I would challenge people to do. Really short 10, 15-minute segments, force yourself to stop no matter where you are. And trust yourself that the amazingness that you had in your head when the timer went off is going to be there when you come back. So that's one thing I tell people. Another thing I tell people is I never go back and reread what I wrote before. I just keep going. If I can't remember something that is super crucial, I will go back into the manuscript and find what I need. But usually I'm like, I can't remember if she came home before this or not. I just leave in myself a note. If she's home, you'll need to change this. And I just move on. So my self-editor, she has to wait until the book is done. So I've gotten really good at shelving her. She just has to be shelved. I've learned that I am a sprint writer. I really love to sprint. 30 minutes is my sweet spot. I can waste time for about 5. And then I go, Elena, you better get your crap together. You have 25 minutes left and you need to write, a whole scene, 1,500 words. And I like race myself and I see if I can do it. So those are several things that I do to really, really train myself. And then another trick I sort of mentioned already is write in more than one project. So typically what I will do when I am up against a deadline and I have to write in 2 projects, or if I'm just really enjoying writing in 2 projects, have a lot of time, I write one project to death and the other one I hold back. So I'll kind of explain that really quickly. So project A is my push project. It has to be done in the next 5 days. I have 60,000 words to write. So that means I have to write, 3 or 4 chapters a day in that project. I'm going to push myself. Even when I think the words aren't there, I'm going to push and push and push to get that done. Then my other book is it's almost like a reward. It's like a treat that you can have after you get off the treadmill, right?
I love
so the
this
push
so
project.
much.
The push project is you're on the treadmill and you're not stopping till that goal is reached. The other project is, I know this deadline is coming up next week. I would like to give myself a little head start. So I'm going to write 1 chapter in this project. So typically my push project is 3 chapters. My, hold back project is 1 or 2, and I can write up to 5, 6 chapters a day when I do that. And then the project that I'm holding back on, I don't allow myself to write more, even if the story is there, because I need the words tomorrow, so I force myself to go, okay, I know what's coming in the next 6 chapters and I'm super excited to write it so that when I get up the next day, I'm super excited to lay down 10,000 words.
Oh, I love this so much. And I really feel like you just gave me permission to move in the direction that I was kind of moving in.
Oh, good.
On working on 2 different projects. Like I was talking to a couple of friends today and I was like, this is the other weird thing. I feel like this is so ridiculous, but I genuinely feel like I smash the most words when I am brutally exhausted because I don't bullshit myself. I don't second guess anything. I don't question anything. I'm just sort of mindlessly slapping the keyboard. And I can never tell the difference between the tired words and the non-tired words. And I said to my friends, maybe I really do need to spend a bit more time writing when I'm actually really tired.
Yeah.
But
I do the same thing. When I'm up against the wall, I'm like, I have to get this done. There is no more, I think I'm going to watch this show, or I think I'll do a puzzle, or no, it's like you get it done. You have to do it. There's no more room to not do it.
Oh, I love this so much. Okay. One of the things that I loved in your, clearly I loved all of the things, but let's talk about the Vegas talk that you did. So this is more now moving into launch tactics, and there's a thread here, all of the permission and the empowering. And I loved how many different techniques that you used, how many different ideas and innovative ways of thinking about launching and marketing and all of the things. So basics first. I wondered if you could just briefly explain the difference between rapid release and publishing fast, which is point A. And then kind of point B was just to talk a little bit about your tiered marketing system for launches.
Sure. So publishing fast to me is publishing books quickly. That whatever that looks like for you. But most of the groups that I see people saying, how soon should I release books? Because everybody wants to know, right? We want a checklist of if you release every 22.7 days, you will be a millionaire by September 17th, right? So everybody wants that. And that's what I see people saying is you have to publish every 30 days, every 3 weeks. And to me, that's just publishing fast. And I don't want this to sound crass or anything, but anybody can do it. Anybody can publish fast. It's not special and it's not a guarantee of success. People who have found success publishing fast and they stick by it, and they don't like it when I say that because I'm kind of right wing or left wing, one of the wings, where I'm like, I don't believe that. I don't think that's true. I think you can find success other ways, but they are committed to every 30 days. And they believe if they don't publish every 30 days that they won't be as successful. And I just don't believe that. They are actually doing more than just releasing a book. They think they're not, And it kind of goes back to this adage that we always hear of the best marketing strategy is writing the next book, which I also think is hogwash. Yeah. The best marketing strategy is planning and executing a marketing strategy for your books.
No.
But I mean, you've heard that, right? Sasha, I mean, you've heard that.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, oh, well, don't release until you have 3 books. And, the best marketing strategy is writing another book. I'm like, no, it's not. The best marketing strategy is planning and executing a marketing strategy. So publishing fast to me is just putting books out. You're just publishing quickly. There might be people who think that's all they're doing, but they're not. They're doing marketing strategies behind that. They just don't think they are. They think the publishing of the book is the marketing strategy. So I don't think that's true. A rapid release strategy is a marketing strategy that you go into going with a plan. I'm going to release a book every other month, once a quarter, twice a year. I don't care what it is, but you go into that series or into that. I do everything in a series. So it's really easy for me to say, with this series, I release every 3 months. With this series, I do every other. With this one, I do every 6. That's my marketing strategy, is a timed release strategy of a certain specific, consistent release. And I have marketing strategies behind each release and each book as it comes out, which kind of speaks to the tiers. So I guess we can move into that. But so rapid release is not contingent upon fast. That's important to note. Publishing fast is fast. It has to be fast. It has to be every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks is what I would say people would say. Rapid release can be twice a year. It's not contingent on doing something close together. It could be once a year, although I think that's more of a trad model. And as indies, I would probably do twice a year. So I have a series that I'm putting out twice a year, 1 book in June, 1 book in December. Book 4 comes out this next June. So that is my rapid release strategy. It is a marketing strategy for those books. And it's a 6-month strategy. I wanted to try and see if a 6-month strategy could still make me money. And P.S. it can.
Yeah, so this is encouraging.
Right? Like if you're not a fast writer, which is 100% awesome, and you should lean into that instead of feeling bad about yourself. It's another thing I think that people get down on themselves about is, oh my gosh, I'm not a fast writer, so therefore I'm never going to be successful. I just don't think that's true. I think I have a day job. I'm busy. My husband's busy, this, that, the other. That's fine. You lean into what you can do. So, and I don't mind sharing my numbers because that's just the kind of person I am, but I have those 3 books out now. First book came out in December of 2020. So it's been 16 months. And the books, I just looked on Reader Links. The books have made $146,500, those 3 books in 16 months. So I don't know what that is. I would have to get my phone out and do that math, but it's not a small amount of money, right? So it's almost $10,000 a month, $9,100 a month. And it's because I have a marketing strategy behind the things that are going on, behind what everybody else can see, behind the front book that comes out. There is a marketing strategy that is employed over time. So that's the difference between publishing fast and rapid release. Rapid release is a marketing strategy that where you choose what you're going to do for that series, and the release and the timing of it. And then you plan marketing strategies before, during, and after the release of each book. So that's going to talk a little bit about the tiered approach to launch. So I have a 3-tiered approach to launch, which is, hard, medium, and soft.
I did giggle when you talked about that in the presentation as well.
There's nothing rocket science here. It's soft, medium, or hard. Yeah. So, because it kind of tells what you do. Like a soft launch is like you're sleeping and your book still comes out and you still make money. Medium launch, you do more. And in a hard launch, you're really, really pushing into your launch a lot. With a hard launch, I do things with all avenues possible. So newsletter, reader group, ARC readers, giveaways, website stuff, sharing chapters, anything I can to get my book out there, I'm going to do in a hard launch. You're going to spend more money on paid ads, that kind of stuff. But this also talks about later in series books. I typically don't have book one be a hard launch. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So I'm never going to say I never do this, I always do that. It just depends on my life, what other books I'm launching, that kind of stuff. But
just one quick question here.
Yeah.
With your series, and you always write in a series, and obviously you write a lot of romance. Are these interconnected standalones? So each one can be read in isolation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. They're interconnected standalones, usually, not usually, always connected by a place. I will say that those did pretty well for me. In 2019, I switched how I wrote, and I actually write only in families now, or found families, like a friendship group. So everything is family-based, core-based, and it could be a found family instead of like a blood-related family. I actually write back and forth, forward and backward throughout the timeline. So book one, always you will have someone from book one, either the hero or the heroine, who will narrate in every book moving forward. So that's usually my cowboy. It's usually my patriarch in my family, and he will narrate in every book moving forward. His, love interest, they get married. His wife becomes the matriarch of the family, right? And she will narrate quite often. I won't say every book because I'm not sure she's in every book, but she will narrate quite often as well. And so you will follow the couple in the first book extensively. You will follow them from beginning to end in the series. They narrate through the whole thing. So if people are interested in kind of looking at that, you should look at my Shiloh Ridge Ranch series. That's the series that I really did that the most with. I did it with Seven Sons as well. Seven Sons started in 2019, and that is how I write now. So everything is fluid, forward and backward. So it is a standalone romance in book one, but you will see book one people in every book moving forward. And then I introduced to you characters in book one for books two, obviously two, and usually three, and sometimes four. I always introduce my tortured hero in book one, and I save him for book 6, 7, 8, whatever, because my readers are going to bond to that tortured hero, and they're going to show up in droves to read his book. So I know when that book comes out. I always schedule that one to be a soft launch for me personally, because I don't need to do anything to launch the book. The writing, the hero himself inside the book is going to launch the book for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It really does. It's fucking genius.
Yes. And so that has really helped my sales a lot in the last couple of years. And I did do a video on it in my group. So if people want to go over there to that, they can kind of watch that. But that's what I do now. So I always have a tortured hero. He will narrate in every single book leading up to his, and his is usually later in the series. And that's always usually a soft launch, because for me personally, I don't have to do anything but write the books in order to launch that book really well.
Well, it's the golden Easter egg.
Yes, it's the golden Easter egg. And if you can find what that is within your brand, then put it as book 6 or 7, and then you don't have to do anything to sell that book except write books 1 through 5, and write them. And isn't that the goal? Like, it's $0. You're writing the books anyway, so. And I treat later in series books, every single one of them gets a launch tier, and then they get things applied to them that they're going to do. So that series I was talking about, this every 6 months, I got a BookBub featured deal on it at the beginning of May, and it's going to be free for the first time in 16 months. And I'm doing that because book 4 comes out in late June. So I am pushing people to book 4 by putting book 1 free. So book 4 is going to be a hard launch, and I know that. So I'm going to be sharing chapters and talking about that. As soon as I hard launch my book in May, I'm going to be focusing on my June 28th book for hard launch also. But I'm not just focusing on book 4 and yelling about book 4, book 4, book 4, book 4. I am counting on book 1, 2, and 3 to sell book 4. So I need to get people into book 1, and I'm going to do that with a BookBub featured deal at free. If I couldn't get a BookBub featured deal, I would book as much as I could on that free book. It's never been free before.
I've literally just used this tactic. I have book 3 and 4 coming out, and book 1 is currently free. I got a BookBub and then like booked all the others every like 5 to 6 days for as long as I could. We'll see if it works. And listeners, you'll get the analysis once it's done. But
and I do want to just say, like, it doesn't always have to be book 1. Like, if you could analyze your data, everyone's always asking me, like, how do you analyze what's working and not working? Like, well, I look at my read through. If I have a series of like 7 books and people are dropping off at book 4, I would put book 4 at 99 cents or free, because I can get my lukewarm people back if I reduce the price of that book, right? Or book 5, make the book after where they're dropping off, make that one 99 cents and then free. And it's a year-long tactic, 99 cents first, 6 months later, free. So, bring people back into the series. Your lukewarm people that read books 1, 2, 3, and 4 and then dropped out, get them back with book 5. Put that one on sale, or put book 4 on sale, or bundle something together to get them past that thing that they're dropping off on. Not everything is about new readers. You have other types of readers that you've got to bring back to you if they're dropping off. So the putting books on sale, that you can do that in your launches if you're doing a rapid release strategy that's not, every 2 weeks. So if you're a little more thoughtful about your marketing, you can find those places and bring those people back to you.
I can't believe that we are basically at an hour. I'm gutted, because this has just been the most interesting, and like I think everybody is going to have burning pens because they've been writing so many notes. But I want to ask one last quick question before I ask the ultimate podcast question. It's just a mindset question, really. I think my favorite thread of yours that I've ever read was your recent one where you talked about how you assessed all of your series. And it was just, I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about that post, and just like for people who haven't heard about it. What I found so inspiring was the number of series when things happened. And I think it's a lesson that people need to hear, just about how much you have to do in order to like make this work. Yeah. So I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So I was getting a bunch of stuff ready for a big launch I was doing. And I was trying to link, where am I going to send people at the end of this series? Oh, I should send them to this series, or I should send them to this series. I have some series that are connected, right? So it got all convoluted in my head, and I wrote all my series down on a piece of paper. And as I started writing, I was like, I thought I had 21 series. Like, I even put on my Facebook, a personal Facebook post, it's my 21st series. It was not. It was actually if I'm going to go all the way back to all of my trad pub and everything, it was my 32nd series. I didn't even know it. And I started looking at all of them, and I was like, wow, this one did really good. This one did really good. These others, they're not awful. I was still making a good living, but I definitely have some that I call racehorses. And I want to make sure that I attribute that term to Nicholas Eric. I took a bunch of courses from him and have read some of his books, and he talks a lot about donkeys and racehorses. And so that really resonates with me. And so I have kind of adopted that and talk about how some of my series are just racehorses. They are strong. They have long legs. They run hard. They run fast. They win. They are beating all the other things that I am doing, right? And they kind of do it out of the gate just because they're bred well. Because we want to think that we can wave a magic wand and make a donkey into a racehorse, and you can't really. You can dress him up and he can sell better for a while, but he's not going to really be a racehorse. So what I did in my post in my group was I realized that it took me all the way to series 8 under my main name that makes most of my money is Liz Isaacson. And she was doing fine before this 8th series came out in 2019. It was The Seven Sons. And I kind of mentioned it where that's when I switched over to writing in families and sort of keeping people in the books, not only the couple, but I think I looked up once in book 4, which is my tortured hero, because this is my first series. I would now put my tortured hero later in the series. But, you know, when you're experimenting and it's the first time you're doing it, my tortured hero was book 4. And I noticed he outsold far and away anything else I'd done. And so that was my 8th series. So I wrote 7 full series of books that were okay. And they were making money. But then when this 8th series came on, it was a racehorse. And I was like, holy cow, I've done it. 1 out of 8, right? So that was my Liz brand. I looked at my Elana brand and it was the same thing. It was about my 8th series. I've taken down a couple of series now from Elana. But it was her 8th series that was like, here you go. Now we're going to really take off for you. And that can be a variety of reasons, paying more attention to the market, finding what works for you in one brand and kind of moving it over to another brand, that kind of thing. But I just really realized that it takes a lot of persistence and patience. And you might think you've written something that's really amazing and completely on market, and you put it out and you realize it's market adjacent. I have a post about that in my group as well. And so what I do when I'm looking at it to assess what is and isn't working is I look at how excited people are about the next book at full price. So pre-orders for me are a huge indication of whether or not people are excited about the series and the book and want to keep reading it. I pay attention to my reader group. I don't post there, my assistants do, but I go into the group and interact because remember, I'm the forward front of the brand and I interact with them. And one thing that I noticed them starting to do specifically with my Shiloh Ridge, which came out after my Seven Sons, it was actually my 11th series. Oh, no, sorry. Seven Sons was 9. Sorry, 1 out of 9. Shiloh Ridge was 11 or 10. Yeah, 9, 10. Yes, 11. They started calling themselves things. So the surname in my Shiloh Ridge Ranch series is Glover, and they were calling themselves Glover Lovers. And I was like, this is coming from them, not from me, right? So that was a way where I was like, holy cow, this is working. Like whatever I'm doing inside these books is working. And so I asked them what they like about it. And I asked them what they don't like about it. And I asked them what they wish they could have. If I'll get on sometimes and I'll be like, hey, I have a few extra weeks in my schedule. What book do you want me to write? So if you have a Patreon or something like that, you could ask people there. I don't have a Patreon, so I'm using my Facebook reader group for that. And boy, will they tell you what they want. And they will tell you what they like, and they will tell you what they don't like. So I ask them those things, and then I compare that to the actual money. Because sometimes readers will tell you something like, oh, I want more of this, but then they don't show up to buy or read it. So it's not always true. And you are the business owner. You are the one with all the data and the knowledge and have things coming at you from all sides. So you get to decide if what they're saying is really true. Like if they're saying, oh, we want more small town romance. We don't want a rom-com, but your rom-coms are outselling your small town 10 to 1, then you write a rom-com because they're showing up with dollars, right?
Okay.
So I assess it kind of in different ways. A lot of it it's not quantifiable, but yeah. I definitely am looking at the numbers. And I just looked at my Seven Sons. We have a staff meeting every Thursday, and I looked at Seven Sons last week. And my read through on Seven Sons is legit 100%. From book 1 to book 2 is like 101%, which doesn't make any sense other than it doesn't have the little thing that says don't show free, right? So I'm like, okay, people who are paying for it are reading it. But it just is. The read through is far higher on the Racehorse series. So I know they're doing better. They've made more money in far less time than any other series. I have people talking about them, calling themselves things. Some space thing came up, and all of my Shiloh Ridge men have nicknames. So the hero's first name is Bear, but his real name is Bartholomew, stuff like that. Weird names. I have a guy named Cactus, like weird stuff.
I love this so much.
They love it. The readers love it. Somebody posted about some space program. His name was Victor Glover, like a real person in real life. And they posted it in my reader group and said, I wonder what his name would be if he was at Shiloh Ridge Ranch. And so then everyone was putting, and it always starts with the same letter. So Bear and Bartholomew, Cactus and Charles, like it always starts CC, because I had to do that for my own sanity. Yeah. And so they were like, I wonder what his name would be. His name's Victor Glover. And they were coming up with all these V names. And I'm like, I don't even know what this is. I don't even need to run this group. So I can kind of watch that and ask them questions and look at the numbers and mesh them together. And that's how I decide what is a racehorse and what isn't.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. I have just one last very quick question. This is the Rebel Author Podcast. So can you tell everyone about a time you unleashed your inner rebel?
Like in publishing? I was going to ask you if it's in publishing.
It can be anything. So I get all kinds of stories.
All kinds of stories. I'm going to be super tame. I thought of one in publishing that I am kind of a rebel where I just do whatever I want when it comes to KU and wide. And some people don't like that. They want you to all be wide or all in KU. And I'm like, I am not going to do that. I am going to be a complete rebel, and I'm not going to put one whole brand in KU or wide. I'm going to do whatever I want that serves my business and my books and my series the way I think they should be served. So I have a bunch of books wide and a bunch of books in KU, kind of mixed all over throughout my whole brand, and it feels very rebellious.
Amazing. Oh, I love it. Can you tell everyone where they can find out more about you and your books and anything else that you would like to add?
Yeah, the very best place to find out about authorly stuff and connect with me as an author is in my Facebook group. It's Indie Inspiration with Elana Johnson. I've got the 4 indie books out, and I don't really do a lot on my author page is for readers. My personal profile is for personal. If you want author stuff, author advice, my thoughts about authorly things and writing, it's Indie Inspiration with Elana Johnson.
Thank you so much. This has genuinely been absolutely amazing. And of course, a big thank you to all of the show's listeners and an enormous thank you to all of the show's patrons. If you would like to get early access to all of the episodes, then you can do so by visiting patreon.com/Sasha Black. I'm Sasha Black. You were listening to Elana Johnson, and this was the Rebel Author Podcast. Next week, I'm joined by Mary Buckham, and we are going to be talking all about active settings, how to make your settings richer, deeper, how to engage your characters with settings. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, I won't do as much of an intro next week, but I will be back the following week to normal.
Don't forget to tune in and subscribe on your podcatcher. And when you have a moment, please leave a review.